We do have.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think you can that include them, but I'll sure that's.
Okay, so I'd like to
Yeah.
call the October 28th Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from May 27th, 2025. And so I guess you have to make a motion.
I'll move to approve the
I
minutes.
guess I'll second it. All in favor? Okay, so now it's passed. Okay. The capital expenditures for the sewer camera. I guess we'll turn that over to Jeff or Maggie, probably Jeff.
Yeah, so there is a line item in our fund for our sanitary sewer that supports our purchases of capital items, tools for maintenance of those. Yeah, we're looking to utilize roughly $33,000 of the allotted 55 to purchase a camera. And, what this camera would allow us to do is kind of supplement along with our crew that we contract with to just further investigate our pipework, our infrastructure. It'll be very useful, for our larger construction projects that are happening around town that we can camera our mains before, during, and after to identify any potential breaks. A lot of the issues we're finding is from the main replacements of water mains and gas mains that occurred almost 10-15 years ago at this point, and we're just seeing them now because the borough has not cambered our lines ever. So this will just be another tool in our arsenal to be more proactive with our infrastructure, our maintenance, and our planning of proposed improvements.
But does it, so it's coming from a fund, I guess, that was intended to hire someone else or not?
There is a capital fund within our fund for this. There's a line item in our sanitary for capital purchases.
And is this in the general fund budget? No, this is separate.
In the sewer fund.
In the sewer fund, that's what I thought. So, so essentially, this is a budgeted expense, but because it's over a certain threshold, you're coming back for.
With adding a large purchase, it's just best to put it in front of you folks that, this is how we would like to use the funds that are allotted.
But I guess. But it's still, this is just how you have the money.
Yes.
So, do you have any questions about this?
No, that makes sense.
So, do we need to vote whether to forward this to council? Or how can we do that?
Yeah, so we can go ahead and make a recommendation, and then this will go before council for final approval.
Okay, so the recommendation is to purchase it, so,
Yeah, more for the record, yeah.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
Move to recommend the capital expenditure for the sewer camera.
Second, all in favor? And so that would, I mean, this is happening, that would probably be here like in the spring or something.
No, so this unit is in stock.
That would be here now.
Our co-store vendor for this at their Public Works location, which is out in Harrisburg. So if and when approved by full council, we would see it. And
Okay, so that would be next
by
week.
end of the year, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the capital expenditure for the installation of the HVAC system for 80 Windsor.
So this is for the Girl Scout wing. It was identified when we were doing the roof reinforcement project that the system was in need of replacement. So we secured 3 quotes in there. However, we are leaning towards the installation of split system HVACs in there. It'll give us a better sense of control, given that that room is mostly unoccupied, being able to, give the flexibility to the users of the space to cool it when needed versus 7 days a week when it's unoccupied seems like a better use of energy to me. And that price tag for that was $12,200, so that actually falls underneath of the thresholds for the bidding.
But, I mean, what was, you say you picked the split systems, what was the other choice?
Just a standard central air unit,
Okay,
like what we have there now. But that, there's equipment upstairs in the attic, which
Right.
isn't the most accessible. It's not necessarily the safest environment to be for maintenance. If there's ever a leak, it's going to come through the ceiling.
so there'll be these, fan units outside, right?
There will be 2 units that will be secured to the outside wall. And then,
Oh, I see, there'll be like,
Yeah.
you see sometimes people have like on a platform.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to put them up high enough so they'll be out of reach of most youth.
What do they call those, the condenser fans?
Mm-hmm.
Condenser fans. So, wall mounted. And then, I guess my last question is, was this also within, probably wasn't budgeted specifically this item.
There is in the capital fund, this year, next year, and the following year for HVAC replacements at that building. So each one.
Oh, so this is the
in our
one you're
capital
using,
plan, yes.
but you're using like the money that was allocated for this year for this.
Yes,
And then there'll be the other rooms within there.
yes.
Okay, so this one's completely a budgeted expense. I mean, you didn't know how much, but she's bid it now. Okay. Any other questions about that?
That makes sense. But it sounds like right now, it's all one system. So if you're cooling one area of that building, you're cooling everything.
We can tweak it, but, it's just more maintenance, in my eyes. It's, this seems like a very foolproof idea for in there, the Girl Scouts, and they've just proven to be very responsible, with the space that they occupy. So, we trust them to use this system as intended.
But is the current system serve all 3 spaces?
No, there's an individual one.
Oh, so it's in some ways, it's not that. I mean, it doesn't involve like messing with the existing system.
It does not, no.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, I guess we'll do the drill again. It's like a new motion.
Oh, yeah. I will move to recommend approval of the HVAC, installation of HVAC system for 80 Windsor.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor? Okay. And again, this is, we're approved, but this is just, the process is like bring it here so that, because it's,
It was approved in our capital plan for this year. We'll just bring it to you folks and then we'll bring it to full council.
great, perfect. Okay. Cell service issue. This is one that a resident brought to Jim Spear, and just want to get a little bit of an update on this. It's not a simple matter to get, the various carriers to improve their service in the borough. So do you have any?
So this was something that had been, I guess, going on for a little while from a discussion standpoint. I had reached out to Verizon contacts earlier this year. Emily and I had a meeting with them, and we discussed the cell service signal issue. and asked what possible solutions we could pursue. As I understand it, there was potentially discussion, or there was discussions about potentially putting some sort of transmitter somewhere in town to boost the signal. I was told that there was some work that was done in the Wynwood Shopping Center to help with the signal over here, but obviously I think there's still room for improvement. In my discussions though with Verizon at the time, this was a couple months ago at this point, they didn't really offer any other solutions that we could pursue. So at this point, I can follow up with them again and see if we can kind of reignite those conversations and see what sort of solutions they might be able to offer. But in terms of there being a discussion about like putting a transmitter on this building, they told me that that wasn't actually a thing that they can do. So I don't know who was having the conversations, like who at Verizon was saying that that was a possibility, but according to these folks, that's not something that could happen. So I'm not really sure kind of what the next steps are, other than I will reach out to them again and see if we can kind of revive these conversations and see what sort of projects we can partner with on them to make that happen.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, one of the places this came from is that people with Verizon service couldn't connect to Park Mobile
Right.
to pay the meter. So, I
Right.
mean, there was like, there was actually a real sort of borough-related reason why this came up.
Yes, I am aware that that was maybe the impetus and why this has come about. But in terms of there being movement on it, didn't really get a lot of great feedback from Verizon last time I spoke to them. So we'll continue pursuing it.
Well, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. I probably should have asked you before the meeting. But do we have some communities don't want these providers putting up antennas, or even a lot of them have taken to putting them up on utility poles?
Mm-hmm.
Is there some borough restriction on that?
So if we do, it would be our wireless communication facilities ordinance.
Right.
I haven't looked at that recently to see specifically what it says. Do you guys know what it?
So I don't know that end, but I can tell, I know there was preempting Pennsylvania legislation
Yes.
that actually allowed them, because I was going, in Conshohocken, we had a long zoning hearing that
Yeah.
eventually ended when the state changed the state legislation
Right.
So what, to
part-
allow them
to
to?
allow
Okay.
those type of facilities.
Right. Essentially, to restrict municipalities from zoning against them.
Right.
So there was a big push a couple years ago in zoning legislation that municipalities were adopting these wireless communication facilities ordinances that would attempt to restrict putting the backpacks, they call them backpack, like the boxes,
Yeah.
on certain utility poles or decorative light fixtures. So a lot of it was communities with downtowns like ours that have kind of the decorative lamp posts and kind of the more historic charm.
Mhm.
They were trying to restrict these WCFs
Mhm.
from being posted in areas where they would kind of provide visual clutter. But yeah, then the state came in and preempted local zoning laws surrounding wireless communication facilities. So we are a little bit more limited in what we're able to regulate because of the state preemption.
Okay. So we've got an ordinance that may not be completely enforceable.
I have to go back and actually read what it says.
Well, if you could do that and just send me a link to that so we can at least know what's an option. But it sounds like the carriers aren't like super interested in even putting them up if we could do that, right?
Well, I'm not sure that was, it was, former manager West told me upon his departure that there was conversations about putting a facility on this building.
Yeah.
That was what I was told isn't happening.
Right.
But whether or not they want to put something somewhere else in town, they might still want to do that.
Yeah, I guess what I'm suggesting is that if you succeeded getting Verizon to meet with you again, if you could ask them like other alternative besides on the roof.
Oh, yes, right, but that, yeah, they didn't offer anything like that
I
to me
know,
when I
but-
spoke to them before.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. Okay, any,
That makes sense. Appreciate the update.
So just real fast, on the wireless communications facilities, we do have that in our, it's a section within our zoning ordinance. So it has, there was like model legislation that most municipalities adopted, and I think ours is probably tailored from that. So that would be where, if you want to go and read kind of what would or would not be allowed, it's all in there. So it's section 500-1301. So Article 13 of the zoning ordinance regulates our wireless communications facilities.
but we don't know that it's enforceable.
I mean, it
Because
should
of the
be.
state.
Well, this was, let's see, this was adopted in 2018. Do you recall, Eric, when the,
That was like 2021 that legislation occurred.
okay. So we might want to take a look at that. And so potentially some of what we have in there predates the preemption. So there's a potential that some of it might not be enforceable, yes. So,
Right, so the question is, should we, at some point, go back and modify it to be,
right, yeah, we might want to review what we have and update. Obviously, we're working on the recodification right now for the zoning ordinance, but when we go in to make the substantive changes, that could be something that if we're doing other zoning amendments, we can take a look at this section as well and make sure that we update it based on what we're legally allowed to do.
And imagine I'm looking through your code, it actually does contemplate, it has tower systems, it has non-towers within the right of way on electrical transmission poles, street lights, utility poles, traffic signs, not to exceed 5 feet. So I think you might actually have some context where this could be implemented.
Yeah, okay,
right, but then you could sort of possibly say to the carrier, hey, like, we just loosened the requirements on our, about the state, we just loosened our requirements, for this, would you be interested in that approach?
yeah, certainly a possibility for the future conversation.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing with the roof is, maybe that's like, old style, but what people used to do is like rent them the space on the roof.
Yes, that would be certainly,
I know,
the reason why we were interested in that is because it would generate additional income for the borough to have the facility hosted on our building.
okay, fair enough, okay. The 2026 paving program,
I often say two things about paving, that, my job is judged on the condition of the roadways, and I will not leave the borough until all roads are paved. So this is our proposed plan for 2026. We are still operating off of the pavement assessment from 2020. Roads didn't improve over that time, so, we're still safe to use that. We are proposing another substantial run, just shy of 0.6 of a mile, which includes Conway Avenue from Haverford up to Sabine, Stewart Avenue, and, the Dead Enterprise crossing there. We have completed our pipe repairs along this. We still have to camera our storm sewers up there. And, so the recommendation of what the budget is in there as well, along with the ramps. And, we are excited for another large round of paving here. I know my guys who run our plow trucks will be very happy.
so let me ask you one question, because I looked over the plan and I didn't see one, but I didn't have a copy of the 2020 assessment, which includes the entire borough. The part of Windsor that goes from Wynwood, I guess, probably up to Norworth Avenue, I didn't see that anywhere in the 5-year plan.
Yes. Yeah, we're waiting, if you look at the proposed plan for capital, we are proposing a pretty substantial storm sewer upgrade along there.
Oh, I see, so.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna pave
Okay, well, that's
Windsor
it.
until that's
Okay,
done.
so So I can say that some areas that aren't on the plans, are, waiting for storm sewer. Right, is that accurate?
For utility work.
Yeah, just,
It's say utility.
and any generalized infrastructure improvements, upgrades.
And that only because I saw the end of the document. That's all out of just that doesn't, there's no transfers from EIT contemplated for that.
No, our highway aid fund can support this.
Can support the current plan, but there was some, this discussion of accelerating.
We can get to that, yeah. So,
I got, actually, is that a next item or a future item or?
if you'd like to discuss that, and, yeah, I don't know, but the purpose of putting this out there earlier this year, so we can notify folks a lot sooner. So if you all approve this paving program, then council will approve it in November, then beginning of the year, we can start to mail stuff out to the affected folks. Just kind of urging people, if you go on vacation, please leave a spare key with the car or down here with no chief, just so we don't run into what happened this year.
Well, yeah, this is just a discussion item. I think it's just gonna go to council. We've approved this concept many times.
Yes, yeah, just discussion for now. So we'll have this before council, but if you have any other thoughts on it.
No, I mean, I think that, it's great. We're proceeding with it. I mean, the only thing I would say is that, maybe just in the discussion, I would just let people know that, they may not see their street on these plans, because there's other, we're trying to be careful about not repaving and then digging it up like 10 minutes later. So, just so people who don't see their streets on these plans can, have some, you say like, well, if you don't see your street on this plan and you're wondering why, it's probably because there's a utility work that has to be done first. Let's see, so I guess we're up to the capital discussion. I don't know which things you want to talk about in specific.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, I don't have anything prepared ahead of time. Jeff and I were looking at that, so that's actually going to be part of our small group discussions as well.
Okay, that's fine.
But wanted to just kind of give you the overview of it. So in our capital plan that we adopted in September, we had a couple of items that we had coming up. So I'm just going to give you an overview. If you want to follow along, actually, if you have the approved CIP from this year, if you want to pull that up, and then we can just kind of run through that.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an update, kind of what we're thinking in terms of implementation. So I'll give you just a second to grab that.
Thanks. May have been an invitation. Yeah. Oh, yeah, here it is. It was on the meeting.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of the big ticket items for this upcoming year. So we have our recurring expenditure for our, I'm going to call it more generally our MS4 program. So this is something that we've been accomplishing. We have our PRP reduction, which we've been accomplishing through our stormwater bump outs. Obviously, we did the 4 this year, and so we anticipate doing more next year. Do we have a recommendation? Well, we don't yet have a recommendation. I spoke to our engineers earlier, so we're going to take a look at which of the remaining identified areas, locations for bump outs would be the most appropriate for next year, so we can get into that in future infrastructure meetings, so we'll target that for January probably. But we had identified the need to replace our elevator. So that's going to be coming up for this year. I'm still waiting to hear back in terms of kind of an updated cost estimate and timeline for that. But we had targeted about $135,000. So Ken Watson, our houseman, is coordinating right now with the elevator company to get a couple quotes and figure out what we need to do specifically and how much it's going to cost and tighten that up a little bit. But we do anticipate it's going to be around that, maybe up to 150. So I'll provide more information as soon as we get an updated estimate from that. We already committed to purchasing our vehicle, the new EV vehicle for our police chief. So we've already taken possession of that, which has been great. And then that is due July 1st. But if we pay that as soon as we can in January, then we save on some interest payments. So we're just going to go ahead and pay in full early since we have the money already kind of set aside for it. The portable radios, so again, this is going to be a police expenditure. The radios expire after X number of years, so we do need to continue to replace them. That's about $16,000. The other kind of big work that we are proposing at the library next year, so we're going to be replacing the HVAC system in the Girl Scout room this year, and then next year we're going to be replacing the library entryway vestibule. So that's something that Jeff and I have just recently talked about. So we will need to pull our engineers in on this to do some initial kind of scoping and design for that, and then proceeding with construction. So we've budgeted about $35,000. That might change though, kind of once we take a closer look at all of the things that need to be done. So that is on our radar, and we're going to be targeting early spring for engineering and then construction in the summer months. So when school's out, hopefully kind of piggybacking off of a lull in usage there. So we'll need to come up with, just how we're going to manage the entry in and out of the building while it's under construction. So there's some logistics that we'll need to work out for that. The camera security system, we're actually going to be dropping the cost of that. Initially, we were talking about replacing the full camera security system, but we were able to get some additional updates from some vendors. So we're actually just going to stick to the system that we have now, but we're just looking to add a couple of cameras to increase our coverage in the park. So the basketball court, the skate park, and the parking lot itself. And then we've also talked about adding some cameras internal to the building, which would cover the downstairs entrances, both the patio, so the Haverford side, the Conway side, and then in our new vestibule area that we've built. So we'll have cameras in the vestibule and then at each of the two entrances. So we do have the estimates for that. So that actually drops us down. I think it was about 45,000. That's what we have on the CIP. We're looking at about 10,000 for that. That might also be able to be reduced even further because we have a grant from our Divot property and liability, which, by the way, side note, we were able to get the full cost of the vestibule covered through our grants from Divot. So we were able to combine our workman's comp and our property and liability grant monies to pay for the full cost of all of the materials for the vestibule.
What?
So similarly, we have some money that we could possibly cover the cost, almost the full cost of the interior cameras through that grant program, which would bring the this capital cost down even further. The other kind of big vehicle purchase for next year, so we're going to pay for the police chief vehicle, but we do need to replace the dump truck. That cost has gone up from our previous estimate, so we're looking at $77,000. And in terms of our timing for that, Jeff, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, so 2026, we'll just be issuing payment for the truck chassis itself. We will not pay for the completed upfit until that is done, which is anticipated in the early months of 27. There's currently, the build time for the dump bed itself is 58 weeks. They say weeks, I guess it doesn't feel as long as months, but that's still a lot. So we wouldn't need to issue payment for the upfit until 27. And then, given, the price of vehicles and, the good condition of the vehicle we're selling, which is a 2014 truck, I expect a high return on that at auction, somewhere in the neighborhood of, low end would be 25,000. I've seen them sell for about 10 to 15 grand more than that. So we're expecting a high return, which will certainly help offset some of those in increased expenses that we're seeing.
So it's the case that it's end of useful life for us has come, but someone else might use it for some other purpose.
It's starting to toe that line where things are tweaking. We're helping it get to where it needs to be.
So someone could buy it for parts, I guess.
It's still a great truck.
Yeah.
It's just to me, it's once a truck hits 10 years, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Sure.
So we have those capital costs then split over the course of 2 years. So we have the initial purchase of the vehicle, and then as Jeff was saying, the upfit itself will be 2027 expenditure. So we also have here our town clock repair. So we've got updated quotes for that. So we're going to come in and replace all of the internal mechanisms and update the faces and make that look really nice and fancy. So we're excited for that. The other big modification is the baseball bleachers. So this was a recommendation out of the Master Parks Plan. When we had talked about this project coming on for 2026, we had identified this primarily because this posed, from a prioritization standpoint, one of the kind of larger safety improvements for the park. And initially, we had talked about doing the implementation of a couple of the recommendations in the Master Parks Plan, which included the removal of the bleachers, the replacement of removal of the outfield bleachers, replacement of the infield bleachers, and then a full kind of walkway that was somewhat parallel to Wynwood. In taking a look at our budget numbers, in taking a look at kind of the need, we did just replace a number of the parts on the infield bleachers. So really what we're going to be recommending at this point is the removal of the outfield bleachers and then the removal of those white pines that are in the outfield side, obviously on the outside of the field itself. Those trees have started to fail and we don't want to have any sort of safety problems with them. So we're proposing to take them out. They're actually growing into the bleachers. So the bleachers will come out, the trees will come out, and then per the Master Parks Plan, that is going to be restored to, it's called a sitting lawn in the Master Parks Plan. So essentially we're going to grade that seed and have that as kind of a nice sloped lawn for people to sit on. That way we establish the lawn area itself, and then we can come in with future phases to do the walkway and to do the bleacher replacement. That's something that we can coordinate as well with Fongie now that they're up and running, as well as the Narberth Athletic Association. So we can always piggyback off of fundraising efforts with those organizations and pursue additional grant funding in the future. But for now, we're going to be focusing our grant funding efforts next year on other projects. So we wanted to scale this one back. So that is the scope of what we're considering then for implementation of that component of the Master Parks Plan.
So it's not going to cost $127,000 to do what you just said.
Correct, right. So we're anticipating that that'll bring that capital cost down to about $30,000.
And in general, are you gonna pull some other projects in to make up the difference, or you're just gonna have less of a draw on the capital fund that year?
We're just gonna have less of a draw. Because we have a lot of projects, so again, we put the whole kind of scope in the capital plan, but as things have started to shake out a little bit more, we're seeing where some of the priorities lie, and this is where we feel we can make that modification, and this will address kind of the immediate need for safety, for making steps towards the improvements, but not going all the way in at this point when we have other priorities that we'd rather focus our funding for.
So that whatever the delta is going to bump to some future year.
Yeah, so either that can go for the future or that'll just reduce the capital demands for next year.
That makes sense to me. Have folks communicated with the NAA as well about what the thinking is?
Not yet, but we will, yeah. We literally just discussed this like this morning.
Oh, gotcha.
So we will communicate that with them and let them know that that's what we're thinking. So they'll be aware that that's going to come out. In terms of phasing, we're proposing that we will wait until after 4th of July to remove the bleachers. So they'll still be there for the 4th of July celebrations. And then we'll come in late summer and do the work there. So the tree removal, the bleachers, and the restoration of the lawn. So the lawn can be stabilized prior to the end of the growing season. So we're going to focus those efforts then during that time period.
So is it fair to say that the total for 2026 is gonna be like closer to $1 million approximately?
Yeah, because we have a couple other adjustments. So it comes out to 1.15, so 1,150,000.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah, because we're also reducing. So the other one that we're reducing is the school zone sign. So we had talked about applying for the TASA grant for this. We submitted our preliminary application and then had a call with the program organizers where they gave us feedback that this was essentially too small of a project for the hurdles that we would have to jump through in order to meet all of the PennDOT requirements. So we decided to withdraw that application. So we are going to move forward with just paying out of the capital fund in full for the sign replacement. But we're proposing as well to phase this. And so we'll replace the 2 signs on North Marbury Avenue this year, and then we'll replace the signs on Rockland Avenue in 2027. So we split that cost over 2 years as well.
Okay.
And one other quick question with the bleachers, which is if we kind of split something out in 2 phases, sounds like, and so is there any I don't know what to call it, like, are we going to be? Is there any like waste quote unquote wasted money about the fact that we split it out into 2 phases, or is it very cleanly to say like, yes, you can just move this over and you're not, you don't lose anything by having to activate labor and materials at 2 different points in time?
Right. So we do feel that this is the best way to split things up. There is a concrete foundation under the bleachers. I mean, obviously, when we go to replace the infield bleachers, we will be replacing them in kind. So it's a kind of different scope of work. So we were talking about this, Jeff, and in terms of you were telling me the impacts of like having the large machinery to come in and do the walkway later. So this actually makes sense from an like equipment access standpoint.
Yeah, so the way we're proposing this, be split is, next year, we'll take down those white pines. My guys will dismantle the bleachers, we'll scrap those to get whatever extra bucks we can from there. We'll bring in a concrete company to tear out the concrete walls. My staff will do the topsoil work and just just to regrade that area. Then we feel it's best to have the other bleachers installed. And then once that's done, then we can do the pathway. because by the time we remove and replace, the other set of bleachers, that will be the last time that a piece of heavy equipment will be out there.
Gotcha.
So we can come in and do the pathway and it's done.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think you were now up to the sewer main repair, which is pretty obvious.
Yeah, yep, so we've already talked about this one. So again, the price estimate on this is $325,000. Again, that is gonna be the high end, that is taking into account if there is a more significant repair than what we're proposing. So the actual scope of work that we're proposing is a lining project, but we are anticipating from a budget standpoint, if something actually breaks and has to come out and then be replaced, sections of the pipe, that's not the scope of the project, but we are budgeting in case the worst case scenario happens. So we're anticipating, hoping for, and planning for the scope of work to actually come in below that. But again, we want to make sure that we have the money available in the event that we encounter a worst case scenario and need to do a much more significant repair than we're setting out to do. So just sometimes you don't know what you're going to find until you actually start digging things up. And, things go awry, and we just want to make sure that we're budgeting for that. So that's why we do have that amount of money in there.
I really applaud you for doing that, because what happens in these projects is that you open it up and you see that you need to do more, and you don't have the money budgeted, and it becomes like a last minute, like, can we have council meet and, discuss this? And so it's great. I mean, I guess it's hard to lock down the contractor to a known price, or do they give you what they call unit cost, so like, if this breaks, this is what it's going to cost us to fix it, because otherwise you're kind of at their mercy, right?
Yeah, so I'm assuming, and maybe Eric can speak to this, but in terms of what goes into the bid documents for that project, if we know what's going to go in for it.
All right, for the line for
The lining for Elmwood. I'm sorry,
For
Grayland.
I mean, if you're best case scenario, if you're aligning it, you're able to actually just do it through CoStars.
Mm-hmm.
And but like, I guess the levels of, and you could better video it. You can have a lining company before you even start preparing.
Oh, I see. So you could know.
A lining company can tell you're going to watch the video and they go, "We can line that. We can't line that."
Yeah.
So generally, best case scenario, they're going to come in. They'll be able to clean the whole pipe, like aggressively clean it, and then run the liner through it, and you're done. Or you're going to video it, or they're going to assess the video and say, we can't actually push the line through here. Okay, well, we're going to have to replace this section.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is, how do you get competitive pricing on that replacement?
We got a couple bid.
But even for the replacement part, like all of a sudden you saw that it needs to be replaced, you have enough time to bid that out, that replacement?
Well, you would have, in your contract, you have quantities.
That's
You have a quantity to get a unit price.
That's
You may anticipate, you might put in there 10 feet, and then you
Okay.
just get a unit price for it, yes.
That's what I'm saying, is you just don't want
You
to.
mean as opposed to a complete unknown?
Well, yeah, the guy opens it up, the street's open, and you don't have any pricing, and
And
he
you
can
can't-
charge you whatever he wants, because, you've got this hole in the street that,
Right.
has to get filled in.
Right, yes.
So you have a way to
Mhm.
make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, and before, ideally it gets lined, and if you can't, then we have to come up with a contract for that involve replacement as well.
But I guess the lining doesn't require that it be dug up. Or
No, the benefit of lining is if you have a pipe that is in good enough condition, that's, let's say, still stable, it could be broken, it could be tuberculated.
Right.
You can clean it out, and they basically put a big balloon through the pipe. Start at one end, push the balloon all the way through, cure it with steam or hot water, get it hardens, and then the existing pipe you could shatter it, break that away. You have a brand new pipe.
So you don't have to dig up the whole
Correct.
street. Okay, so then okay.
Yes, and end up to be about 30% of the cost of replacing by digging it up.
Great, okay.
Yeah. So we'll have the money budgeted,
Mhm.
but if we don't end up spending it, then same thing, that becomes available for the following year. So it just further helps to kind of pad our capital budget there. to continue doing the work.
And it's a capital budget, so it's not like the money goes away.
Yeah, it accrues, yeah, so it sits in the account and it accrues. The one thing I know that I've mentioned in finance and administration, but we do have a capital reserve fund with Pliget,
Mhm.
which has a higher interest yield rate than our checking account. So part of what we're looking to do is map out all of the expenditures when we expect to have this money actually being dispersed, and then keeping as much as we can in the reserve fund to accrue as much interest as we can, and then only moving the money over into our liquid accounts
Mhm.
upon anticipation of payment for those services. So that'll also help to kind of, over time, build enough capital reserve that we can get a substantial amount of interest on the money sitting there, which will help to further just fuel right back into capital projects.
And then your last item is the Elmwood Avenue Bridge.
Right, so this as well is something that was identified pre-Master Parks Plan and is also included in the Master Parks Plan. So we had a scoping call with our engineers last week to talk about the phasing for this. So we are going to be applying for grants for this project. So over the course of 2 years, we anticipate this being about $400,000 split over 2 years. We're hoping that we will be getting grant funding for this project. Grant funding, though, is almost entirely available just for construction costs, so not for preliminary engineering. So we do anticipate that we're going to start seeing some of those engineering fees because we have our engineers working on the preliminary design for the bridge. So we have the conceptual plan. Everything is already surveyed, right?
Yep.
So they're going to work on the actual plan design. So we will see that in the next couple of months. That'll be done by mid-February because our first grant application is due at the beginning of March. And then there's another grant opportunity that we're planning on applying for, which is going to be due in April. And then there's a couple months when grant applications are being reviewed. So typically we'll find out if we're awarded the grant in the fall. So next year, our focus will be primarily on doing the design work, grant application. And there's going to be a bit of a lull because we don't necessarily want to do any site prep or other things that would fall under what could be covered by the grant. Because most of them, if you do the work, you can't then retroactively apply those monies towards the grant. It's all reimbursement, so you have to wait till you have the grant awarded before you can do the work.
Does this include the stream bed restoration or whatever needed to happen to the, what are those, the rocks and the...
Stream stabilization of the stream bank that's been washed out, the stone baskets that gave you.
That's it, that's the gabion baskets. That's in there?
Yes, because the Master Parks Plan did also envision restoration of the riparian corridor on the west side of the bank into Elm Grove Park. But yes, this scope of the project includes the restoration of those gabion baskets, kind of where the bridge is actually crossing. And then we're also going to be modifying the orientation of the bridge. So right now it goes pretty perpendicular to Wynwood Avenue. We're going to be angling it so that it kind of heads in a northwest direction, which kind of helps to lead into the park and then to the sidewalk on Wynwood Avenue. So it angles more into the park as opposed to directly teeing into the sidewalk on the street.
But, I mean, I guess there'll be a period when there's no bridge, but it's not like it's a critical, but I'm fair with it.
Yes, I mean, during the actual construction, I would imagine that we would just be closing that pedestrian bridge as the new one is being built.
Yeah.
So we anticipate that the grant awards will be announced in the fall, and then we can start any sort of work. So at that point, we'll have to see what the design says in terms of the phasing for construction. But if we assume a grant award in the fall, then we can kind of tee up the actual construction phasing timeline in the spring, and then that'll just be grant administration and construction management. So we'll be working on that through 2027 and however long the construction takes. Do we have an estimated construction timeline at this point or not yet?
We don't, but the scope of that project is not that large. I mean, you have a contractor that's fabricating what's essentially a 20-foot bridge. doing the stream bank, I mean, it's probably 30 to 60 days.
They could fabricate the bridge. also.
Yeah, right, it's not a very long, it's probably 30 to 60 days from like when they start to when
I'm saying they could fabricate it off site and just drop it in.
But most, yeah, it depends what type. There's either prefabricated you can drop on, or even if it's like a timber bridge they're building there, it's still not. We did a very similar bridge on a trail in Springfield, Delaware County, but it was, I think they built the timber bridge in about a week.
And the last thing I want to mention is because we were able to modify some of our expenditures, in speaking with Jeff, one of the things that would help Public Works out the most this time of year is to have the leaf vacuum box. So this was identified in the capital plan, did not make it into our capital improvement plan that we adopted in September, but we want to add it in just because it's a lot of extra labor to pick up leaves the way that they've been picking up leaves. It is a $12,000 purchase. So we wanted to go ahead and put that on for next year, just so that we can have that teed up and ready to go for next fall collection cycle, which will save a lot of man hours.
Is that on the plan someplace or just a new one?
It's in the master inventory,
But it's not on the.
but it's not on the
On the
plan, no.
5-year
So,
plan.
right. So we decided to elevate that
Yeah, that's fine.
for next year.
So,
Sounds good.
so I only had one other question about the whole thing, and I'm sure you know this already, but I don't know how we do it, but we've got to sort of get the word out what the purpose of these storm bump outs is. Because I think there's like mass confusion that it's for stormwater control, and it's not. actually.
Right, yeah, right.
So, I mean, I know we can point people to the documents, but it just seems to me like the first, forget about the parking part, I'll leave that alone. But like, because you can debate that, but like the fact that it's not for stormwater control.
Sure.
So it's a myth.
Yeah, it has been brought to my attention that there is some chatter in the online
Yeah.
social media sphere, and a lot of people use the term stormwater management kind of interchangeably with other things. So there's somewhat of a divide in terms of the language people use versus their understanding of kind of what it means certain things when you say certain words. But yes, I can fully appreciate that is confusing, and we can certainly work on messaging kind of the reason behind it. So we have started to put out, I think we had something in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So we have been trying to message it. It's just challenging because if folks aren't reading our materials and they're just kind of
I know.
yelling into the void on Facebook.
Yeah, but what it'll do is it'll give a more responsible party the ability to point the people in the social media post to, like a human readable or a layperson readable document of what's going on.
Sure.
There's-
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we've already started to do that, but we'll continue to put materials, make them available for folks to kind of, in a TLDR, this is sediment control, not stormwater management.
Right,
Yeah.
got it.
I will say because I've been looking at like other, not for this purpose, but like going through other various like web pages and looking at other stuff, and it's occurred to me like, I think we're probably, this is like not scientific, but I think we're probably the best municipality I've seen in terms of like actually having information available on our website in a way that's easy to digest and putting information out on like social media in a way that's like consistent. So thank you all for doing that. It's like really evident when you look at other municipalities, sometimes like their budgets aren't even available, and we have budgets going back like a decade available online.
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out. We have been working really hard, especially with the new website, to try to make things available and to put them in places where people would think to look for them. When in doubt, we do have a search bar too, so you could always just like type in a keyword and try to find what you're looking for, and just trying to message things out using social media, because people don't necessarily, even at this point in time, want to go to a website. They want to just be able to look at a meme on Instagram and kind of get the gist of what's going on. So we're trying to do more and more with that as much as we can to make that information as accessible as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess there's nobody from the public Certainly not here. I don't see anybody online. So I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, all in favor?
Adjourn.